John here. Today we're going to be looking at the Foxeer Legend 4K ScopeCam. So I've already opened this, but for you guys, I purchased online the camo version of this 35mm lens, and the specs look really good. It intrigued me. I know it comes from a Sony partnered sensor, which I know that Sony's sensors are phenomenal. It's got 4K, so I currently use the Runcam Lite, and I'm not necessarily unhappy with the product. I just think it needs to pair up with my good quality GoPro footage. So I bought it. It costs $270 US, which is close to 400 Canadian, and that's pretty steep already, but I'm going to show you in this video and have a look at the quality that it may have, and we'll decide, and you can decide whether or not it's something that is something you should add to your YouTube footage. So let's have a look here. I'm going to show you really quickly what the camo is supposed to look like. I'm going to open this up here, and this is it's extremely different than what I imagined this would be. It's nearly reflective. What I do notice right off the bat is that it's CNC. It's a much more dense material, obviously, than the plastic that I run with the Runcam Lite, and the Runcam 2 that I previously had as well. And this is far more robust. It has the iconography in the back, on the side, cool, thanks. The buttons are much better quality. I wish this was like fully waterproof, but unfortunately it isn't, because it's got the openings here all the way to the inside guts there. So I'm sure if you get water in there, this thing's not going to be very happy. I do like how the bottom's CNC'd as well. I know a lot of people online were posting about how, you know, I tried to tighten it and on my ScopeCam and it snapped, and then they're left wondering whether or not they should pursue airsoft videos with the Runcam. But I can say I've mounted this to my scope and it is solid. One thing I'm really upset about is it doesn't come with an Allen key, and to tighten this to your scope, you need one of the Allen keys, as opposed to maybe something like a GoPro tightener, which is really thick and very easy for you to handle. That's something that these guys could have improved on for sure prior to coming out with this product. I feel like, I want to say it was rushed, and throughout this I guess we'll talk about how that may or may not be the case. Avoiding the color here. I do like how in the back they have a, instead of it being a double pry-off on the Runcams, and you can lose the cap, it's a door hinge, which is you know, it's a feature. It's better than what previously is out in the market, in my opinion. I like that. I can't tell if it's entirely water sealed. There's no gasket or O-rings in there to prevent this. This is just a pad that rests up against the internal battery. It does take external batteries, and I tested that as well, and it plugs in via USB-C, which is really nice. While the website doesn't say it is fast charging, I charged this from 0% to 100% in an hour and a half, which is pretty fast. It's pretty reasonable. Going ahead and unscrewing the lens cap, this is your standard 12mm lenses that they carry over at Foxeer. And they're interchangeable, but like I said, this is the 35mm lens, and I mean, you can swap it for something like it's like a wider lens or even a tighter lens like the 50mm, but remember, it has to go into this housing, so if you're going to go something wider, there's a chance that you're going to have tunnel vision or have to crop into your image in post-production in your editing software. Unfortunately, this isn't weather sealed too, and you can see all the internal components on the inside there, and you know, they easily could have put an O-ring in there or some sort of guard making this weather sealed. I know GoPro GoPro makes, you know, their covers on their products to make them absolutely weather sealed, and that, I feel like this was a missed opportunity to kind of really get ahead of the curve and separate yourself from the rest of the competition. Now that we've looked at the overall build, let's look at the specs on the software, on the app. So when you purchase the product, you get in the box, obviously, your camera, but you also only get a tiny USB-C cable. And some interesting photos. But they don't include instructions. So as a competent person, I know that these companies come out with apps, but if somebody didn't know, and I feel like, once again, this is just a missed opportunity to tell them and the customers that you have an application, go download the app and start hooking it up to your camera or your phone or some sort of product so you can see your footage rather than just committing to what you may or may not be recording. Currently, as of today, and this is January 23rd, the applications for Foxeer don't work on Apple phones. So unfortunately, it doesn't work, and they found a back door to get into the software. And if you need that for me, send me a DM in the comments and maybe I can help you out. However, it does work for the Android phones, and that's fine. And the software's okay, but it has a little bit of problems. So anyway, so we get into the software here, and we pair it. So you start it and you pair it via Wi-Fi. You have to connect directly to the camera. And one thing I'll notice already is that it's extremely slow. It is very slow getting into the settings and starting up your live preview. The live preview is very reactive and pretty fast for something that's Wi-Fi, but it definitely could use some improvements. I've spoken to the company already, and they have quickly been able to respond to me and tell me how to hook it up, how to, what things to look forward to in terms of the product, like being able to pair to Apple. That'll come soon, they said, in a week or so. So we get to look forward to that. And yeah, and they've been really polite despite my concerns about the color. Camo. So let's look into the settings here. You have access to a number of video settings. So obviously this comes in 4K, and you shoot currently only in 30 frames per second, which I personally like 24 frames per second, and all my timelines have been 24 frames per second. So 30 is whatever, and it's unfortunate that they don't have 24. Different aspect ratios like 16:9, the nice wide, or the 14:3, which is kind of like an Instagram crop. Up to you what it is that you like to do. I prefer 16:9 because the 4K is already so big that I can crop in if I need to. At 2.5K, you have access to 60 frames per second. So which has been mostly our standard slow motion for our Runcams. Like 60 frames is typically the most amount of frames per second, or the slowest you can slow it down by 2 in post-production on your editing software. And that's been, you know, that's good. Nice to have a 2.5K. That's all right. And then we get to 1920 1080p at possibly 120 frames per second. And 120 frames per second, it got me excited because, I mean, that's really slow. If you wanted to slow that down, I would highly suggest never shooting 120 frames per second if you're not going to slow it down. It's just you force your camera to shoot very dark and have to boost the light internally via ISO, and it's just not optimal unless you are intentionally slowing down the entire footage. So we have video quality, we leave that on an S fine. Slow motion, you can already introduce it, so it automatically does the slow motion for you if you don't have an editing software. I mean, that's convenient for a lot of people, but it's not for me. We just leave that in standard 30 frames or 60 frames or 120 frames and just leave it at that. We get to choose our auto ISO, whether it maxes out at 1600, which is pretty good. I leave that around 800. And the in-body, the stabilization is is accessible as well. And that intrigued me too, because a lot of software doesn't do that. I know with GoPros, they have, they're introducing what is horizon follow tracking, and that helps them determine what to stabilize and how to stabilize an image. And so I was really excited about that. We remove our stamps, so we don't want anything baked onto our footage, such as a timestamp or a date. I'm not interested in that, I don't need that. Image rotate here actually doesn't turn the camera, kind of like a Runcam Lite. It just flips it upside down. You don't need that unless you're mounting your Runcam or Foxeer scope upside down underneath, then it's not something you're interested in. Indicator lights, so on here you have your indicator lights, which are both blue for camera recording and yellow for your Wi-Fi. And I'll always try to hunt for Wi-Fi for some reason. If I were to then switch this to photo mode, which is something I would also never consider, you can, and that's just illustrated as green. When it finds your connection, it'll stay solid yellow. And when you record the blue, light will blink, kind of like how Runcam works. When you turn off the lights through your app, you will notice that at the back by the battery, it'll blink, indicating that it is recording. So you have a way to see it kind of subtly, and that's really good, so that you can't not know whether or not you're recording. If you set the settings to, I don't want to hear any beeps and I don't want to see any lights, how would you know if you're recording? So that's actually really neat. And I would leave it just like that. I don't really mind having the lights. I'll probably end up covering this. So the lights don't really bother me. Sharpness, I'll leave it normal. White balance, I'll also leave auto, because if you're going between sunny days and cloudy days, you don't want to change your white balance depending on the day, unless you are a video freak, and I just don't have time for that. Unfortunately, with this product as well, is they don't have access to changing your contrast or your saturation for your colors, how bright they are. They have effects that are baked into the product, such as normal, vivid, flat, cartoony, and black and white, which is something that I just don't really understand why that would be something you integrate into your product. Quick capture is there, so if you turn it on, it automatically starts recording, and that's, I mean, if you are in a rush, like, that's fine, but I don't have this set to auto turn off, so that is something that I don't need. I would like to know when it is that I engage or I record this product. Dual files is a funny thing too. It actually just takes a recording of a worse quality than what it is that you're currently shooting. So it shoots, let's say you're shooting in 4K, if you dual record, you're gonna shoot in something like a 720p or a 1080, and it's just gonna be worse quality at the same frame rate. Keep in mind, you can't just choose separate frame rates. Just don't need that memory, considering you only have an 128 gigabyte memory card in here, SD. Now that I've gone over the specs, I'm gonna quickly do a shooting test of different frame rates, and you get to decide and see what that would look like. Hey guys, in true Canadian fashion, it's minus 10 degrees out. I've got a target exactly 200 feet out. I'll be using my Aries Striker that shoots 300 feet per second with 0.45 gram BBs. And we're going to check the quality here of the camera at various distances and see how it goes. Let's do some field of view tests. This is 25 feet. Okay. It's 50 feet. It's 100 feet. 150 feet here. This is 200 feet. Remember too, this is shot in 4K at 30 frames a second at the moment. We'll do some tests in this frame rate and resolution, and then we will change it accordingly. Test out and see which is more optimal for this product. That's a hit. That's another hit. Let's do 3 of these. And we'll move on to a different resolution here. 2.5K at 60 frames. It's a hit. That's another hit. That's another hit. So hopefully we can see whether or not we can see these BBs travel. That with the 120 frames, it crops in quite a bit. I don't know if that's going to be like that on the end result here, but we will see. Gotcha. Gotcha. So we'll see how this looks. I'm a little curious. See how the stabilization works with this product. Standing up. Just missed that one. Okay. It's really hard to tell from the preview, so we'll see how this acts up. One thing I noticed too is that with the way the shutter works, you get a lot of this weird motion when you move, but that's on most cameras. High-end cameras tend to solve that, but this seems to work pretty okay. Let's test the low light capabilities of this while I'm here. So that basically goes over the entirety of the Foxeer 4K Legend. In my opinion, it is a little expensive, but in order to get that next level of photo quality, I think this is just a benchmark. I think that this is kind of where the quality needs to be. It's great. I really like it, and I can't wait to start shooting videos, playing airsoft again, and kind of getting away from this cold. If you like what you see and you have any things to look forward to, or whether or not you like it, you don't like it, comment down below, just so I can see what everyone's kind of has to say, really. All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. Cheers.